Welcome to your personalized deep dive into the AI world for April 30th, 2025. You shared a compelling collection of AI updates, and we've distilled the most significant and intriguing developments for you right here.
Yeah, today we're diving straight into the key stories. We've got Mark Zuckerberg's recent big interview, the buzz around Meta's LlamaCon event,
The latest on Google's Gemini 2.5 Pro.
right, and the arrival of Alibaba's Queen 3, plus some updates for Notebook LM too.
Exactly. We've got a lot to cover, from, high-level strategic thinking down to the practical, hands-on stuff developers are seeing with new models.
So let's jump right in. Mark Zuckerberg's recent conversation, pretty interesting stuff there.
Yeah, one of the points he raised was about this perceived gap, between the top closed source models and the open source ones.
And he specifically mentioned Llama 4 Maverick's ranking on the chatbot arena.
Right. But what's interesting is how he framed it. He acknowledged the perception, sure, but then pivoted to Meta's internal focus.
Which is all about user value within Meta AI. That's their main benchmark, he said.
So it's not directly comparable to public leaderboards, but because Llama is open source, they can actually evaluate other models internally against their own yardstick.
And he really stressed what he thinks matters for consumer AI. Low latency and intelligence per cost.
That classic trade-off, right? Wait longer for a maybe slightly smarter answer or get a pretty good one really fast.
It's fundamental, isn't it?
Yeah.
Especially for apps people use constantly.
Absolutely. And then he talked about the future, drawing this parallel to how the internet developed.
Oh yeah, the idea that AI won't just be one thing. Like you'll have knowledge work tools and consumer apps.
Not just one dominant type. He even used coding in WhatsApp as an example. Doesn't see people doing that directly in the app.
Right, even if AI is doing coding stuff behind the scenes to make features work, it suggests a more subtle integration maybe.
Yeah, and thinking about platforms like Facebook, Instagram, he noted that shift from text to photos to video.
And suggested AI could be the next big format shift. That's a pretty big idea.
It really is how we create, how we consume content.
Mm.
Could AI be the engine for all that?
Could be. And shifting a bit, his product design philosophy was interesting too.
Quite direct, wasn't it? Basically, people are smart, they know it's valuable to them, even if it's not immediately obvious. Trust the user.
Yeah, kind of a bottom-up approach. User behavior drive things. If people use it, there's probably a good reason, even if it bombs initially.
And on social connection, he sees AI helping, maybe navigating tricky conversations.
But not replacing real-world interaction. That seems, well, it seems to be the common line, which is probably reassuring for a lot of people.
AI as augmentation, not substitution.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then there was the embodiment piece.
Oh, the Kodak avatars. Trying to make AI video chats more realistic, always on. That's definitely thinking ahead about how we might interface with AI.
Well, nonverbal cues are so important, right? So
Yeah.
making the visual representation more realistic, it makes sense if you want more immersive interactions.
Definitely. Now, turning to open source AI, he posed that interesting question.
You mean, would others be pushing open source so hard now if Meta hadn't jumped in first with Llama?
Exactly. And he also brought up security concerns.
Right, about using models tied to other governments and potential hidden vulnerabilities in the code. That's a significant point.
It really brings the whole geopolitical side of AI into sharp focus, doesn't it? And the risks of just grabbing any open model.
Absolutely. The idea of intentional weaknesses,
Yeah.
that's serious stuff for anyone deploying these things.
He also talked about their strategy with those huge behemoth models.
Focusing on distilling the intelligence from those big ones into smaller, more practical models.
That distillation process sounds key, making the power usable day to day.
It's bridging research and application, right? The massive models show what's possible, but the smaller, efficient ones will power most tools we actually use.
He also touched briefly on the economics, the massive infrastructure costs.
And that subjective call on when something is good enough to ship.
Yeah, and his point that AI development right now is more research and model-led than purely product-led, that feels different from traditional software.
It does. It highlights how exploratory it still is. You can't always map out features. Sometimes capabilities just emerge from the research.
And finally, he briefly touched on the politics, the perception of tech leaders, and Trump.
His take was basically, as an American company, try to have a productive relationship with whoever is president. Standard approach.
Right, and he mentioned content moderation evolving, praising things like community notes.
And then that really long-term vision, the 100x software productivity increase from AI.
Yeah, envisioning this huge unlocking of creativity, like the shift away from agrarian societies, that's transformative thinking.
It really is. The scale of that potential change is almost hard to imagine.
Okay, so let's move on to LlamaCon. There was some buzz beforehand about maybe a big Llama 4 reasoning model reveal.
Yeah, some anticipation there, but it turned out to be more of a celebration of the llama ecosystem's progress.
Less about one giant new model, more about the tooling and the platform.
Exactly. And the key announcement really was Meta launching its AI developer platform, the Llama API.
Yes, this is a big move, offering fine-tuning plus that fast inference using Cerebras and Grok, although that's waitlisted for now.
It really positions them, doesn't it? Like their version of Google's AI Studio, opening up the building blocks.
Especially the fine-tuning tools. That lets developers really customize these models for specific uses.
Mm-hmm. And they also announced SAM 3 is in development.
Their segment anything model, right? Plus those new open source tools, Llama Prompt Ops.
For prompt engineering, yeah.
Yeah.
And the synthetic data kit.
So definitely a focus on empowering developers, nurturing that open source community.
These tools that help with prompts and creating data, they're super valuable for speeding things up.
And they did confirm Llama 4 exists, sometimes called Little Llama.
Right, confirmation. But those early benchmark results,
Mm-hmm.
someone called them sucking.
Yeah, but they quickly added the caveat, single benchmark, maybe not statistically significant ELO difference. So way too early to judge.
Definitely. Shows how tricky evaluating these models really is. Need robust testing.
Okay, let's switch gears again. Gemini 2.5 Pro.
Ah, yes. Getting good feedback, apparently. Adaptability. High ranking on LM Arena.
Attributed to its one-shot prompt intensity. Sounds like it gets going quickly without much hand-holding.
Which is great, right? Strong results with minimal prompting suggest good inherent understanding. Big practical advantage.
Gemini 2.5 Flash seems to be having some issues.
Yeah, reports of rate limits, errors,
Mm-hmm.
possibly tied to a vertex token counting issue via OpenRouter, some technical snags.
Sounds like typical rollout bumps for powerful new models. Scaling these things is complex.
Exactly. Infrastructure challenges happen.
Interestingly, some users are getting creative, combining Gemini 2.5 for planning.
And DeepSeek for code diffs, right?
Yeah.
Leveraging the free Gemini access in AI Studio.
Smart workaround. Shows how people mix and match tools.
That's the evolving landscape, isn't it? Using different AIs for different strengths.
And in the Cursor Community Discord, users apparently flagged Gemini 2.5 stopping mid-request sometimes.
And the Cursor team is working with Google on it. Good to see that feedback loop working.
Absolutely. Essential for ironing out those early kinks.
Okay, so shall we dive into Quinn 3?
Let's do it. Alibaba Cloud's big announcement, open sourcing their latest LLMs.
And it's a whole family, right? 2 mixture of experts models, 6 dense ones, ranging from tiny 0.6B up to a huge 235B parameters.
That's a really wide range, covers a lot of ground for different needs and hardware.
And those mixture of experts models, just quickly, they use multiple specialized smaller networks, often making them more efficient.
Good point. And the flagship, that Qwen 3 235B A22B, is apparently putting up competitive benchmarks.
And even the small ones, like the 4B, are supposedly rivaling the older Qwen 2.57p. That's a serious efficiency jump.
Yeah, suggests real progress in their architecture and training methods.
And get this, 119 languages and dialects supported.
Wow, a 119, that's huge for global accessibility.
Definitely. Multilingual support is becoming so important, opens up tons of possibilities.
Performance improvements are also set to scale well with the compute budget for reasoning.
And they've specifically optimized them for coding and agentic capabilities.
Which makes sense. That's where a lot of demand is heading, AI that can code and act autonomously.
Right, and the community seems to be jumping on it fast. Day zero support from VLLM.
The fast inference library, yeah. And MLX LM2 makes them easier to try out.
That quick uptake in key tools is always a good sign. Lowers the barrier for developers.
And here's a big claim. Qwen 3 235B A22B is reportedly better than OpenAI's O3 Mini on all benchmarks.
Whoa, okay. If that holds up under scrutiny, that's a major statement for Qwen and open source. Could really shake things up.
SkyPilot also announced support for easy deployment on clusters or clouds.
Making it easier to use at scale. That's crucial for real adoption. Lots of buzz around this release.
Definitely. And the Qwen 330B A3B MOE model seems to be hitting a sweet spot.
Fast inference speeds compared to older models, but still competitive on coding and agent tasks, even on consumer hardware.
Exactly. User benchmarks are showing really impressive tokens per second on various GPUs. Seems like a great balance.
That's what many users want, right? Strong performance without needing super expensive hardware makes powerful AI more reachable.
It's being compared favorably to things like Gemma 327B and GLM 432B for capability.
But with better inference speed, that speed edge could be huge for real-time uses.
Yeah, beating similar or even bigger models on speed while keeping quality up is a win for that MOE architecture.
And developers are already tweaking them, using tools like LlamaSwap and Llama.cpp to customize configurations for specific needs and hardware.
That flexibility is a core strength of open source, isn't it? High adaptability.
Totally. But it's not perfect, apparently. There's a technical limitation noted.
Ah, right. Struggles with structured creative tasks, like writing sonnets, compared to Gemma 3.
Yeah, and it lacks the vision capabilities Gemma 3 has right now. So different models, different strengths.
Makes sense. Qwen 3 seems more geared towards reasoning, coding, agent stuff currently.
But check this out, a quantized version, the unsloth Q6K of that 30B MOE.
Getting 12, 15 tokens per second on a high-end CPU?
Yeah, that could genuinely open up local AI for people without beefy GPUs. That's quite something.
It really is, democratizing access. Though there are some teething issues.
The reports from Discord about GGUF models causing errors in LM Studio.
Especially the 128K context versions. Seems like Llama and Llama.cpp handle them better for now.
Fairly common with new releases across different tools. LM Studio might just need an update. Community feedback helps sort this out.
And the feedback on reasoning is a bit mixed too. Some say it's strong.
Others see signs of overfitting on certain evils like Trivaca, and fine-tuning results with GRPO are varied too.
So still feels like there's more experimentation needed to really figure out how best to use them.
Definitely. Depends on the task, the evaluation method. Lots to learn.
On a practical note, users in LM Studio found the nothing command helps quiet down Qwen 3's verbose thinking output.
Huh. Small tip, but probably very welcome for usability. User discoveries like that are gold.
And interestingly, over in the OpenAI Discord, people are praising Qwen for reasoning and instruction following.
Even comparing the MOE model favorably to Gemini 2.5 Flash in terms of smarts, high praise from that community.
It is, though there's also that recurring point about the base models maybe being a bit overfitted to benchmarks.
The persistent challenge. And some users hit issues with Qwen 3's tool calling abilities too. So, still room for improvement.
Okay, last topic. Notebook LM.
Yes, the Webby winner. Technical Achievement Award, well deserved.
Great recognition for a useful tool, and it now supports over 50 languages.
Fantastic. Broadening its reach globally is huge.
However, some limitations are popping up. Shorter audio overview limits for non-English languages.
Citing technical reasons. And a character limit on the customization prompt, plus some microphone detection issues in interactive mode.
So, a few usability quirks still being ironed out, it seems.
Pretty standard for ongoing software development.
Yeah.
User feedback is key there.
Well, that was a whirlwind tour through the AI updates from April 30th. We covered a ton of ground.
Yeah, from Zuck's big picture strategy down to, specific model bugs and benchmarks.
Hopefully this deep dive gave you some valuable takeaways, maybe sparked some aha moments, and cut through some of the noise.
The pace is just relentless, isn't it?
Yeah.
But seeing progress in models like Qwen 3 and Gemini 2.5 Pro, Meta's strategic plays with the Llama API, it's exciting.
And the community feedback, the hands-on experiences, even the problems, it gives such a real-time feel for how this is all unfolding.
Definitely. So maybe think about Zuckerberg's focus on user value versus benchmarks, or that open versus closed debate. How might that shape the tools you end up using?
And with models like Qwen 3 showing such strong local performance, especially even on CPUs, what new possibilities does that unlock for you personally?
Yeah, lots to chew on. This is really just the start of the conversation, isn't it?
Absolutely. We really encourage you to dig deeper into anything that caught your interest. What questions do you still have? What do you want to understand better?
Thanks for joining us and letting us guide you through all this info. We look forward to our next deep dive together.